Hey everyone, welcome to Amanda's Book Corner. I'm Amanda, and March is already here. Well, it's actually February 20th for me right now, but you'll be seeing this starting on March 1st. So Book of the Month just dropped their March picks, and surprise, they actually have 7 main picks for the first time ever. Up until now, they've always had 5 main picks, at least for the last several years, and between 0 and 5 add-ons. This month, they've been really treating fans, and they have 7 main picks and 5 add-ons. So with an unprecedented 12 offerings this month, did Book of the Month deliver books that we want to read? Here's my breakdown of Book of the Month's offerings this month, how good I think they are, what I think they might improve on, what I think they might have missed this month, and what I recommend you get for your box. So the first main pick is called The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. This is a fantasy book, and I'm actually really excited that they chose this one. Book of the Month hasn't historically offered very many fantasy options, and so it's nice that 2 months in a row now, they actually have offered fantasy books for us. Last month, the fantasy offering was A River Enchanted, which I got. So for this one, The Cartographers, I was really excited that it was included. It comes out more widely on March 15th, and according to Goodreads, out of 144 reviews, it currently has an average rating of 4.13, which is very good. This is the author's second novel following her 2019 book, The Book of M, which is also a fantasy. The Cartographers is set in New York City, and it follows a young woman named Nell, and it really kicks off when her father is found dead in a public library. He left behind an old map, and Nell might be the only one who has this map because it seems like all the other copies of this map have been destroyed. And so this goes into a dark family secret, and it looks like a quirky and fun read, but also one that's full of heart, and I just think it looks like a really fun adventure. I think it's been compared to The 10,000 Doors of January, which I read last year. It was a Book of the Month pick in 2019, I believe, and that was a great book. So I think this one's been compared to that one in some ways, so I'm really excited for it. Next up is a romance called Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. I keep thinking it's Dating Dr. Phil, but it's not that doctor, it's not Dr. Phil, it's Dr. Dill, so that's probably better. This book is also scheduled for publication more widely on March 15th, and according to Goodreads, has an average rating of 4.23 out of 279 ratings. This book is a retelling of The Taming of the Shrew. Haven't read that before, but it is a fairly well-known story, and this is also the first in a new trilogy. And the trilogy has a fun title. It's called If Shakespeare Was an Auntie. Nisha Sharma mostly writes romances. This is a first in a trilogy of romances. She's also about to wrap up another trilogy called The Singh Family. So this is a fun, light read, an enemies to lover romance, which is my favorite romance trope. And it's blurbed by Sarah Desai, who is the author of The Dating Plan, which was a Book of the Month pick about a year ago. I loved that one. That one was the middle of a trilogy. Book of the Month did not offer the first or third ones, but it was a really fun book. Dating Dr. Dill follows a woman named Karina, and she strikes up a very strange deal with her dad, who is planning to sell his house. He'll gift her the house if she can get engaged in 4 months. Classic, funny trope. Doesn't happen in real life as far as I'm aware, but she's on a mission to find her soulmate. But when she has an argument with Dr. Prem Verma, who is the host of the Dr. Dill show, that argument goes viral, and it looks like he might be the perfect person to get engaged to, have a kind of relationship with. Karina's aunties try to set them up, and it turns into a fun and silly romance. And so I'm really excited to read this one. I've been hearing some buzz about it for the last few months, and I'm pretty excited for it. I also like that it's a romance that highlights characters of color, and it involves the medical field, and so it looks like a really fun book, and I'm excited to read it. Like I said, I'm not really familiar with The Taming of the Shrew. I know of it, but I have not read it, and so I might be going into this one blind, but if you are familiar with The Taming of the Shrew, you might get some extra insight or value out of this book. Next up is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Book of the Month calls it a mystery, although I think it's probably safer to say it's a thriller. And this is the third book that they've offered from Lucy Foley so far. Her previous 2 books, also thrillers, were The Hunting Party and The Guest List, and they were both offerings on Book of the Month. And I personally love both of those books. I know both of them got a lot of mixed reviews from people. Some people love them, some people hate them. The most common reasons that people don't like her books is because either A, there's too many characters, or B, they just really do not like the characters. Personally, I don't mind an unlikable character, so that's never bothered me. And I also don't mind having a lot of characters, and I like getting different point of view chapters. And that's what we see in The Paris Apartment as well. Lucy Foley's new book is another thriller, this time set in Paris, so I do like the setting. And it offers these different point of view characters, which is kind of her signature style at this point. Out of more than 3,300 ratings on Goodreads, it has an average rating of 3.8, which is pretty good. And part of why it has so many ratings already is because the book is already out, so be forewarned. It came out about a week ago on February 22nd, and actually I already bought the book in stores when it came out, and so that's why I'm not going to be picking it this month. Otherwise I would, because I did get her previous 2 books through Book of the Month, but for me, because the book already came out, I already got it elsewhere. The Paris apartment follows a woman named Jess who is broke and out of a job, so she decides to go move in with her brother Ben, who lives in Paris. However, when she arrives at his apartment, Ben is not there, and he's missing, and the longer he's missing, the more Jess becomes worried. So this book highlights the eclectic and kind of suspicious neighbors that Ben has in this building where he was living, and at this point, everyone's a suspect, and Jess is racing to figure out what happened to Ben before it's too late to save him. So this book looks really fun, and I've heard from some people that have read other Lucy Foley books and didn't like those ones, that they did like this one. So if you weren't too keen on her other 2 books, maybe give this one a chance anyway. So as I mentioned, I actually liked her other 2 books and I already bought this one, so this is what I'm excited for, even though I won't be getting it from Book of the Month this month. Next up is The Unsinkable Greta James by Jennifer E. Smith. This is a contemporary fiction novel, and one that's been getting a lot of buzz lately. I keep hearing about it. It comes out on March 1st, and on Goodreads it has an average rating of 4.17 out of 484 reviews. This author's written several books, although most of them are actually YA romance, but this one is an adult fiction novel. It follows a young woman who's a musician, and her mother passes away. And in the aftermath and trying to rebuild her relationship with her dad, she and her dad go on a cruise through Alaska and have to kind of rekindle their relationship. So this book does look really good. I like that it has themes of music and being an indie musician. I do love my music fiction. And I also like that it has themes of your relationship with your parents. It does have to do with her mother's death, and so there might be some heaviness to it in terms of dealing with that grief. But it also has to do with her relationship with her dad, who is still alive, and kind of developing a deeper bond with him. So with all that said, although it has a lot going for it, for some reason I'm not really too excited to read this one. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it looks too heavy for me. I'm not too excited about the setting, to be honest. I have nothing against Alaska or cruises in cold waters, but I don't know. I'm not excited about this one, but I'm also not opposed to it. So I think this is one that I might wait and see what other people think and kind of get more of a feel for other people's opinions on it before I go and buy it. But in any case, it's been getting a lot of good buzz, and so this is one that looks like it could be a good pick. So the next one is kind of a surprising pick for Book of the Month. It's called Tell Me Everything, The Story of a Private Investigation by Erica Krauss. This is a true crime book, and it comes out on March 15th more widely. On Goodreads, it has an average rating of 4.5, but out of only 20 reviews so far. This author has several books in both fiction and nonfiction, and this is her first pick with Book of the Month. So personally, I'm not that big on true crime as a genre. It's just not one I'm really drawn to. I like thrillers, I like horrors, I like mysteries, but for some reason, true crime is just not really my jam. Can't really say why. But I am happy that Book of the Month is offering more nonfiction. I do wish they had different kinds of nonfiction than the ones that they normally choose, but this one looks pretty good. It is kind of a cross between memoir and true crime, and it follows a sexual assault case, which is very relevant in the last few years with the Me Too movement. It does come with some trigger warnings of depictions of sexual assault and abuse, so do be cognizant of that before choosing this book, but if you're okay with those kinds of themes and reading true crime books about them, then this might be an interesting pick for you. Next up is a debut novel called The Verifiers by Jane Peck. So Book of the Month lists this as literary fiction, although I think it's also categorized as mystery, thriller, maybe a cozy mystery, something along those lines. This is another book that already came out, by the way. It came out last week on February 22nd, so you might have seen it in stores already. So just make sure you haven't picked it up elsewhere already. Out of 240 reviews on Goodreads, it has an average rating of 3.89, which is pretty good. And this is a book with Asian representation and queer representation, which I think is excellent. The Verifiers follows a woman named Claudia, and she works for an online dating detective agency. Yes, you heard that right, online dating detective agency. Sounds pretty fun. She's an amateur sleuth, so kind of like Nancy Drew if you grew up reading Nancy Drew like I did. So this is a literary mystery and has themes of technology and romantic love in the digital age. I also like that Claudia is a queer woman, even though that's currently a secret from her parents. And so this looks like a fun book. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to pick it, although I think I might. It does look cute, and I do like anything kind of mystery-ish. I did love Nancy Drew when I was younger, so it might be time for me to find my new Nancy Drew, and that might just be Claudia. Finally, we have a thriller from Simone St. James called The Book of Cold Cases. This is a book that fans have been hoping for, and unsurprisingly, it is a pick this month. Simone St. James is a three-peat author, and so her other books, The Broken Girls and The Sundown Motel, were both picks in the past. I read The Broken Girls and I loved it. I had The Sundown Motel on my shelf waiting for me to read it, and I keep thinking I will, but for some reason I haven't quite gotten there yet. But I am planning to read that one, and this is a book that I've been waiting for too. It comes out on March 15th more widely, and on Goodreads it has an average of 4.05 out of 368 ratings. Like her other books, it does have a dual timeline, and it has some supernatural elements, which I'm all about. I love anything supernatural when it comes to my mysteries and horror kind of stories. Personally, I'm not really satisfied unless it is supernatural, so for me that's a win for sure. This book is set in Oregon in 1977 and 2017. In 1977, a murder was committed, and that murder is kind of still unsolved. In 2017, a woman named Shay runs a true crime website, and she kind of falls into investigating this decades-old murder mystery. So she starts interviewing this woman named Beth, who was a suspect in that 1977 murder, and through a series of interviews with Beth, Shay starts to think that she might be getting close to cracking the case, but she also might be in danger herself. So this one looks really interesting, and I'm pretty excited to read this one, and I'm sure this will be a really popular one with Book of the Month subscribers. Alright, and now on to the add-ons. There are 5 of them. I'll try to go through them a little bit faster. First up is The Love of My Life by Rosie Walsh. She's a repeat author. Her book Ghosted was featured in 2018. The Love of My Life is a contemporary fiction, although it has elements of mystery and romance in it. It's about a woman who has been lying to her husband about her true identity for all of these years. So that one looks really interesting. I've been eyeing it for a few months now, and so I'm excited that it's out. By the way, it is being published originally on March 1st this year. However, it did come out in German last summer, so that's why it has another publication date that's a little bit farther back. It currently has an average rating of 4.18 on Goodreads. Next up is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. This one is another contemporary fiction and another repeat author. Her book The Dinner List was featured a few years ago. However, her previous book, In 5 Years, was not featured. This is actually a book that I have read already. I got an arc of it from NetGalley a few months ago, so you can see my review here. But I have to be honest, I didn't love this one. I wanted to. It's about a woman whose mother just died, and that woman really did seem like her soulmate in a lot of ways. Not her husband, but her mom. And she goes on a trip to Italy, which is what she and her mom were planning to do. And while she's in Italy, she meets her mom, but her mom is 30 years younger. So how is this possible? So it seemed like a perfect setup for a really wonderful novel, really heart-wrenching, and about the bond between a mother and a daughter. But for me, it really fell flat in a lot of ways. I'm not going to get into why too much here. Again, you can click on my review and see my full thoughts on it. I just found the character very unlikable, and there's a certain twist, well, not really twist, but a certain kind of reveal that comes on later on that's just not really well addressed or explained in any way. So, and there's also kind of an unnecessary romance in it that I did not think was helpful to the story. So I found this book pretty disappointing, so it's not one that I would recommend. Although I did like the descriptions of Italy, so there is that. It did feel like a nice way to travel when it's kind of hard to travel these days. Not my favorite book though. Although it does have an average of 3.92 on Goodreads, and so I might be in the minority there. Some people love it, but I just didn't find it that great. Next up is another thriller. It's called Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. This book actually came out in 2018 originally, so this is 4 years old, kind of a throwback book. I guess the reason this book was chosen is because the Netflix adaptation is coming out now, but I'm not really a big fan of Book of the Month choosing books that have been out for years, and so I'm kind of iffy on this one. Also, it's another thriller, and I've mentioned several thrillers already, so it seems a little bit thriller heavy and kind of just not important to include an old book. But if you're interested in thrillers and you don't mind getting an older book, that's fine too. Next up is a book that's been getting a lot of buzz. It's Booth by Karen Joy Fowler. This is a historical fiction with an average rating of 4.15 on Goodreads, and it comes out on March 8th more widely. And this book, as you can guess from the title, is about the infamous John Wilkes Booth, who is the man who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. This author has a lot of books, although this is the first one that was featured by Book of the Month. This book has been getting a lot of buzz, and I know that it's going to draw in a lot of readers. Personally, I'm not that interested in it. I'm not really interested in reading about the man who killed Abraham Lincoln, but but I can see why it would appeal to people, and I'm sure it has a lot of interesting perspectives on the different characters in the book. So if you like books that are about real life people and unlikable real life people, this could be an interesting pick for you. And finally, we have Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby. You might remember that S.A. Cosby had a book, Razorblade Tears, which was a pick last summer. That one was really popular, and it ended up being one of the nominees for Book of the Year. I haven't actually read it yet, although it is on my shelf waiting for me to read it. So this one, Blacktop Wasteland, this one actually came out in 2020, so it's a couple years old. It has an average rating of 4.09, so I think it's probably a good pick if you liked S.A. Cosby's other book. It's also the only book out of all 12 selections that's by a Black author, so that's another consideration. Although I will say it's another thriller, and I already mentioned there's a lot of thrillers this month, so if you love thrillers, you have a lot to choose from, but if you're not too keen on thrillers, then like half the books are not going to appeal to you that much. So here are my final thoughts about Book of the Month's picks this month. On the one hand, as I mentioned already, I feel like there are kind of too many thrillers. I know that their most popular books every month are thrillers because people they just appeal to a lot of people apparently, and people just really love them. I don't mind because I do love thrillers, but I've been a little bit less interested in them in the last couple of years. I just feel like once you've read so many, they start to be a little bit less exciting. And so when I look for thrillers, I look for things that are a little bit more different in some way. And a lot of the thrillers that Book of the Month chooses do feel a little bit too samey to me. So I'm not super excited about how many thrillers they're offering this month. I'm also not super excited about having two books that are years old, one from 2020, one from 2018. Again, there's not a problem, but I'm not really excited about books that have been out for a few years. Also, two of the new books are from February 22nd, and I know that's not super long, it's only been a week, but I don't love it when they feature books that have been out already. They've been doing this a lot lately. For example, with Velvet Was a Night by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, that came out in mid-August. I bought it in mid-August, and then it became a pick in September. And they did that a few other times too, and it always kind of bothers me a little bit, just because I'm the kind of person that goes out and gets my favorite people's books right when they come out. So another thing I want to talk about really quick is diversity. I don't think the diversity really is up to where it should be, despite having 12 books this month. Out of the main picks, 4 of them are by white authors and 3 are by Asian authors, so that's about 40 to 43% by authors of color. And then out of the 5 add-ons, only 1 of them is by an author of color, and that one is S.A. Cosby's book, and he's the only Black author this month. So out of all 12 books, 8 are by white authors and only 4 are by authors of color, and that doesn't include any representation of Latinx people or indigenous people or other races that we don't see very much in Book of the Month. And unless I'm mistaken, only one of the books features queer characters, that one being the Verifiers. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the only book in here that features queer characters. So again, that's kind of a low percentage out of 12 books. So although Book of the Month did offer 7 main picks and 5 add-ons for a total of 12 books, which is a lot, I just felt like the picks weren't as diverse as I thought they could be, especially with all the thrillers. I thought that with so many options, they'd be a little bit more diverse in the kinds of books they're picking, but I didn't really see that. And again, I think the racial diversity could be a lot better too. I really do think that there are a lot of books that Book of the Month could have chosen that I think would have been great choices this month. I haven't read them, but they look really interesting, and I think they would have made sense for the Book of the Month audience. Some books that I was hoping to see include On a Night of 1,000 Stars, When We Were Birds, Glory, The Wonders, Fencing with a King, and Things Past Telling. I think those books all sound really interesting. There's a lot more diversity in the authors being authors of color. There's also diversity in the settings, such as Trinidad and Tobago, and West Africa, and Jordan. And so I thought those books looked really interesting, and those are books I do still plan to get, even though they're not offered by Book of the Month this month. But I think Book of the Month could do a little bit better in terms of getting interesting books by authors of color that are set in different places around the world and have more diversity in the kinds of genres that we're seeing. So out of the books that Book of the Month did offer this month, I think 5 of them looked interesting to me, although one of those doesn't count because I bought it already, that being The Paris Apartment. The remaining 4 that I'm most interested in getting are The Cartographers, Dating Dr. Dill, The Book of Cold Cases, and The Love of My Life. I haven't yet made my choices. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to get one box with 3 of those books or 2 boxes with 2 each. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. Usually I make my picks right away, but this month I'm kind of feeling a little bit unsure of what my choices will be. I also might get the Verifiers. That one's starting to appeal to me the more I think about it, so I might throw that one in as well. We'll see. So those are my potential choices, and those are my thoughts on the books this month. Let me know what you think and what books you chose and how you think Book of the Month did with their selections this month. I would love to hear your thoughts. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And to make sure you don't miss any more of my videos, please ring the bell to get all my notifications. I put out about 2 to 3 book review videos every week, as well as 1 to 2 videos like this one, including listicles and vlogs. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!